Clickbait title: replacing my camera system with a smartphone? Maybe.
Hello and welcome to my unboxing channel. This presumably is the Pixel 3. I do not know, as I have not opened the exterior box from Ingram Micro CFS. So let's do that. A Google Pixel 3. Pretty sure this is upside down, maybe. Yep, yeah, it's upside down. I did this exactly wrong, and I just dropped my brand new phone. So we are off to a great start. A SIM card thing, and there's some new headphones. A USB Type-C cable, a USB Type-C to 3.5mm converter, and a USB Type-C to USB Type-A converter. USB Type-C charger. So this phone costs. It is the Pixel 3 and not the XL. It looks a lot like my S8. It feels good though. I actually like it already. The back, the two-toned glass is sort of strange. Google made a big deal about the fact that this is a single piece of glass that has been shaded in two different ways. I actually like the feeling, so I get it on that level, but there's no way this thing isn't going to scratch like crazy, so I ordered a case that has not come yet. I mean, as far as black slabs go, it's a pretty nice one. So when you see me next, I will have used it for a while.
And I have things to say about the Google Pixel 3. While I'll obviously talk much more about the camera later, I wanted to note that I will be switching between shooting this on my usual Fujifilm X-T2 and the Pixel 3 itself, which I'll test out in a variety of locations in multiple lighting conditions. I have to do it that way because I only have one Pixel 3, so I can't shoot with and show it at the same time. Anywho, in college, I had multiple wrist surgeries that didn't quite heal the way they should have. This means that holding bulky things for extended periods of time is genuinely painful, and the shift towards increasingly large and heavy phones might be great or fine for some, but it's not for me. I maintain that there has never been a phone more perfect in the hand than the original Moto X. The Pixel 2 had a fairly small screen, but ridiculous bezels. Put up against the engineering marvel that was the Samsung Galaxy S8, my previous daily driver, it looked downright ancient. The XL version, by contrast, was fine, but it was too freaking big. The Pixel 3 looks like a smaller Pixel 2 XL. It's fine. It doesn't have any kind of notch, and it particularly doesn't have the ludicrous notch that plagues the XL version this generation. You know, I like the look of the screen. It's clean, it's got rounded corners that fit Google's new bubbly OS aesthetic. I remember being excited that my Droid X all the way back in 2010 would be getting Android 2.2 Froyo. I've used every version of Android since then, and it's amazing how far the operating system has come. The Pixel 3 launched with Android Pie version 9, which I like well enough, but I'm not going to get into it because it doesn't really matter, and other people have already done it better. What matters is that the Pixel 3 runs it beautifully. I've never had such a smooth Android experience. I did replace the stock launcher with Action Launcher, which makes much better use of gestures than Android itself, those required on Google's latest hardware, which is dumb. Action Launcher is great. 5 stars. It's a cliche that the best camera is the one you have with you, something that must be true because of how words work, but there are two radically different lessons you could take from it. 1, don't worry too much about what you're shooting with, or 2, make sure you've always got a good camera on you. Since we here at The Week I Review believe that authorial intent is dead, I'm going to focus on the latter, as it pertains to the Pixel 3, but first a brief digression. My X-T2 replaced a Fujifilm X100T rangefinder. I loved that camera, which came with me to 3 continents for the photos it took and the colors it had in those sweet, sweet JPEGs. Its small body meant I could just throw it into my bag and not think too hard about it. But the video was terrible, so I traded up. And while I'm very happy with most of the XT2, I miss the smallness and inconspicuousness of the X100T. But even that has nothing on a phone, which is even more inconspicuous and also infinitely accessible. And while the Pixel 3 certainly isn't as versatile or straight up fun to shoot with as the Fuji cameras, I finally feel like my phone can act as a more than capable backup for when the bulk of a bigger body just isn't practical. For stills. Unlike many of its contemporaries, the Pixel 3 flips the sensor count to 2 front and 1 rear. In lieu of the rear telephoto that's so common, there is an additional wider angle selfie cam, undoubtedly great for all those group shots I would take if I, had groups of friends to take them with. But software is the new hardware. The Pixel does not have a top-tier camera because it has the best sensor or optics. It has the best software. The processing capabilities on display with all of Google's phones take images that any flagship phone could take and then bring them to the next level. All of these really involve taking a number of photos and merging them together with algorithms that, until profit. Smart HDR Plus is the typical tech that is on everything, and it gives very good dynamic range to the image, although it can be a little too aggressive at times for my taste, particularly at night. That missing second rear lens is ostensibly obsolete in the face of Google's super res zoom, which uses the motions in your hand to simulate an existing sensor technology called pixel shifting, merging multiple photos taken slightly apart from each other to increase overall image resolution before performing the zoom. It's unequivocally better than a regular digital implementation. See that this menu becomes visible from 20-ish feet away when zoomed, but whether it is a genuine replacement for a second camera is another matter and not one I feel compelled to litigate. The most notable of the technologies is night sight, a genuinely mind-boggling function that lets you take photos in the dark that just stop being dark. Concerns that images would inevitably become too much like the daytime can be put to rest because you have the same ability to alter the exposure that you always do. So night sight can result in better image quality in the darkness with the same apparent exposure. Full stop. It's amazing.
I also wanted to clarify something since I've seen some confusion on this point. There is no optical image stabilization in any of the Pixel 3's cameras, because I'm shocked to say it or even think it, but it just doesn't need it. As you can see, I am running and just holding the phone, and it looks crazy smooth.
I'd originally intended to let the video speak for itself, but I was so unhappy with how the first version of this review came together as a direct result of my dissatisfaction with the Pixel's video that I literally scrapped the whole thing and started over, which is why this video was a full week late and not just a few days. Sorry, but look at this. What choice did I have? And I'm doing it no favors by comparing it to the very, very nice images that come out of the XT2, but the video that comes out of the Pixel 3 just isn't very good. And it makes sense, of course. All of that processing of multiple shots just to get one good image, it takes time. Heck, a night sight photos can take another 30 seconds or so to finish processing after you've gone off to other things before it actually becomes that amazing, incredible photo. So that doesn't work at 30 frames per second. Instead, you're left with the capabilities of the sensor, and the flaws in that are glaring. What's odd about it though, and where I fell into a trap the first go around, is that on the screen of the Pixel 3, it looks fine. In fact, it looks pretty good. It's only when I bring it into Premiere that I realize that it's not.
But despite all of its flaws, you are inevitably going to see footage from this thing on this channel for when I want reasonably stabilized outdoor footage, if only because it is a whole lot easier to carry this than this. And, it actually works with this external microphone, which is nice.
An unfortunate side effect of the Pixel 3's smaller size is that it has a smaller battery to match. This is a problem plaguing the industry. If you want a battery get a big screen. I would gladly take a thicker phone with a smaller screen, but that's just not a thing that exists outside of like Sony's compact line, which I don't want. The battery life isn't terrible. It's better than my S8 was, but if I follow my typical above average media consumption habits, then I don't make it until the time I would otherwise plug it in for the night. This is a shame. Speaking of the S8, one of the big draws for it last time I was in phone acquisition mode was that it had retained its headphone jack in the face of overwhelming
courage
on the part of its competition. At the time, I used exclusively wired headphones, and the prospect of dongle life, particularly given my many consecutive hours of media that probably ultimately requires midday charging, was enough to keep me away. Now I primarily use a pair of Bluetooth headphones, so the calculus is different. To Google's credit, both USB Type-C headphones and a short 3.5mm dongle are included. I largely stopped wearing earbuds a couple of years ago because a doctor told me to, but The Verge speaks highly of these, so their inclusion isn't nothing. Not of particular consequence, but something I care about, is the implementation of the digital well-being functionality intended to make us look at our phones less. Although it is still in beta, it offers some built-in app timers and limiters, as well as, most significantly for me, a grayscale button built right into the settings panel. It's been shown, evidence in the description, that vibrant colors of a smartphone play a large part in their addictiveness. So a way to make people stare at phones less is to drain that color away. So when I'm not watching a video or taking a photo, I keep them off. And it really does make a difference. Turning them back on is kind of startling, actually. And as a result of it, I sometimes keep it off even when videos play. It's not like this kind of thing wasn't possible before, but the added convenience of it being built into the system right alongside the toggles for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc. is something I really appreciate. And it does make me want to stare at my phone less, and also go back to shooting photos in black and white. It's this kind of thing that makes Google's offering stand out in ways small and large. Some of this stuff will come to other phones, but they'll always be on Google's first. And some things Google is just going to keep for themselves, at least for the foreseeable future.
The Pixel 3 starts at $800, a full $150 more than its predecessor. And the lack of expandable storage means that the 64GB version just isn't going to cut it for most people. We are now, sadly, in the
era of the $1,000 flagship. And while the Pixel 3 isn't quite there, its more sizable sibling is. These phones are being put up against the new iPhones and Galaxy S's and Notes and etc., and they're not as immediately impressive as any of those. But I don't have any buyer's remorse. I like the Pixel 3. It's smooth as heck, has a pretty swell imaging system, and is the only Android phone released in 2018 guaranteed to be getting timely updates in 2020. 8.2 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry that it's a week late and not just a couple of days late. I really tried, but it just didn't work. I have another review coming this week. That is the review that I wanted to do this week anyway, so look out for that, I guess. Hope to see you then.